إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله آمين. My dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, beloved youths, Alhamdulillah, as we enjoy the first few days of Ramadan, this blessed month, this month of mercy, this month of light, this month of the Quran, this month of going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this month of returning to the Quran and the Sunnah, this month of spending hours in the masjid worshipping Allah, this month of getting up late in the night, reciting the ayat of Allah. As we enjoy the blessings of Ramadan, it is important to ask the question which many of us do not ask about many acts of ibadah: why am I doing it? What is the reason for me fasting? Everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in the universe, and the deen especially, which He has obligated upon us, has a purpose, has some wisdom. Many of us, we are fasting this month because it has become a cultural thing. You grew up in a Muslim family and you were taught to fast at a young age, and even though you might not really understand why you are fasting, you're just fasting for the sake of fasting. It has become a cultural norm, and if you do not do so, then maybe your family will not like it too much. If you had your own way, maybe you wouldn't be fasting. It has become a cultural norm. Many of us are doing it because everyone else is doing it, so I will also join in. What is the true purpose of fasting? If we do not understand the purpose and the wisdom behind something, then that thing becomes a burden. And that is why many of us are already looking for the end of Ramadan right now. Many of us, we are counting the days. When will be the 28th and the 29th? And when will that final day come and I will be done with this month of Ramadan? Finally will be able to eat and drink and do what I used to do. Right? It becomes a burden when you do not understand why I am doing something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it abundantly clear in the Quran what the purpose of fasting is. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed upon you as it was prescribed upon those before you, so that you may gain taqwa. That is the purpose of fasting. That you may gain By the end of Ramadan, if you didn't get anything out of Ramadan, but got this one thing, your Ramadan was successful. If you became a muttaqi, if you became a person with more taqwa than you were before you started Ramadan, you got benefit from this Ramadan. Many Ramadans pass our life, and yet we stay the same. We do not become more muttaqi. We do not become the ones who attain taqwa. But then the question is, what is taqwa? What am I trying to gain in Ramadan? And how does Ramadan help me gain this taqwa? Usually the words which are used in translation for taqwa are piety, piousness, fear, love, God consciousness. These are all good words which describe the word taqwa. Yes, taqwa means fearing Allah. Yes, taqwa means loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, taqwa means consciousness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you all the time. Yes, these are correct. Linguistically speaking, in the Arabic language, there are many words for fear. Many words which describe the state of fear. One of the words which is used also in the Quran is khawf, which is a general word which is used for fear. Whenever you're afraid of something, you say, I have khawf for this thing. Another word which is used for fear in the Quran is the word khashya. Khashya, which also means fear. That's why, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He uses this word because of its linguistic connotation to knowledge. Because khashya refers to the fear which is induced in you when you are knowledgeable about something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. The ones who really fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the ones who have knowledge. So that's another word for fear, khashya. Another word for fear is khushu', which we try to develop in ourselves during our prayers. I want to pray with khushu'. That is a fear which is so intense that it comes out onto your body. That is what khushu' means. You're afraid of Allah so much that it is showing on your body. And that's what we're trying to do in the prayer. When we're praying, we're really trying to, in our body, manifest the fear of Allah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not use any of these words for Ramadan. Allah didn't say that I want you to gain khushu' in Ramadan, or I want you to gain khawf in Ramadan, or I want you to gain khashya in Ramadan. Even though all of these fears are good for Allah. Allah used the word taqwa. What does taqwa mean? Taqwa is a precautionary fear. Precautionary fear. When you're afraid something might happen to you, and if you're not taking appropriate steps, you might land up in trouble. The actions which you will take to prevent that trouble is taqwa. That's what taqwa means. So let me give you some examples of taqwa which we practice all the time in our daily lives. You are going at high speed on the highway, which you shouldn't do, but let's say you're doing that. And from a distance you see flashing lights. You know there's a cop a few miles ahead of you. What do you do immediately? You put your foot on the brakes and you slow down. Why? Because you're afraid if the cop sees me or catches me, I might get a ticket. That action of slowing down is taqwa. That's what taqwa is. It's a precautionary measure. You're afraid of some result and you change your action or you do certain things in order to avoid that harm. And that is taqwa. Another example of taqwa, let's say you're diabetic and the doctors tell you you have to stay away from anything which has sugar. Whenever you visit somebody or whenever you're eating somebody, you are going through the contents and the ingredients and you're making sure there is no sugar in what you're consuming. And when somebody cooks food for you, you're asking them, is there any sugar in this? How many teaspoons did you put in this? And you're very careful. You take all kinds of precautions because you don't want to get into trouble medically. What have you done in that case? All those actions of preventing that harm coming to you will be taqwa. Let's say you're traveling with a lot of money. You have a lot of funny, we're taking all these things with us. And you have these in a bag. How much care do you put in keeping this bag safe? You keep this bag next to you, you're making sure you're looking at it from time to time, it's still there. You put zips on it, you put combination locks on it. You don't want to leave sight of this bag until you reach your destination. All these actions, these precautionary measures are taqwa. Another example, which is maybe a little funny, but it drives the message home. Let's say you go for a marriage proposal somewhere. You're a guy or a girl, brother or a sister, and you go somewhere for a marriage proposal to meet the groom or the bride and their family, and to discuss marriage plans and to make sure that things are all right. What kind of actions do you take when you go there? When the bride's family is looking at you, you make sure you're wearing a very nice dress. You make sure you don't talk too much. Before talking, you think 100 times, what will this mean to this family? How will they take this one? You're very careful at eating. What should I eat? How much should I eat? What kind of conversations will I be involved in? You are extremely careful in presenting yourself in the best possible way. All those actions which you take in order to present yourself to the other side, they are taqwa. Linguistically, they are taqwa. So I hope that this idea of taqwa is clear. This fear is very different from the fear which is induced due to knowledge, or the fear which comes out onto your body when you're praying before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a precautionary fear. This is a fear due to carefulness, or fear which causes carefulness. Now the same concept, when you bring it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it goes at a very high level. And it's very difficult to have taqwa for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know why? Because that cop car, you can see it with your eyes. You can see it with your eyes. That diabetic precautions which you were told to take, you could hear it from the doctor's mouth. You know that they are there. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you cannot see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not there in front of your eyes, even though He's there. And that's why it becomes very hard for you to take those precautionary measures which will displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or you take those measures in order to avoid haram. That's what taqwa will be in Islam. In Islam, taqwa would be your actions which you take in order to avoid haram. Why? Because you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much, you want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time. And you're very, very careful about your speech, about your eyes, about your action. Everything you do, you're extremely careful because you don't want to land into trouble with Allah. Anything that could destroy your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the actions which you will take to prevent that relationship being destroyed, will be taqwa. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the purpose of Ramadan is. So the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is of a very high level. It is not comparable to some of these other taqwas which we have all the time, because these other taqwas are easy. We see the effects in front of our eyes, but with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you cannot see the effects right away. Now Mujahid, rahimahullah, one of these scholars, early scholars of Islam, he gave a definition for taqwa, because we're trying to understand what we are trying to get to in Ramadan. What is the thing which I have to gain in Ramadan through my fasting? Mujahid, rahimahullah, he said, taqwa is to leave that which is permissible out of the fear of that which is impermissible. Think about this statement for a moment. To leave that which is permissible. You are allowed to do those things. Allah has allowed you to do those things, but you leave them. Why? Because you're afraid they might have some fraction, a small level of haram in them, some level of impermissibility in them. I will leave these. Yes, I am allowed in doing these things, but I'm going to leave these things because I don't want to get into trouble with Allah. Even if there is a 0.00001% of haram, of impermissibility in my action, I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to look at that 99.99999% of permissibility. Today, what are we doing? It's the other way around. Today, people are doing all kinds of haram, big harams, big sins. And we always are finding that 0.00001% of permissibility. We say, yes, brother, it's just haram, but it's not that haram. It's haram, but there is a 20% good in that. Yes, it's haram, Allah doesn't like it, but Allah also likes some part of it, so let me do it. So it's the other extreme of taqwa. Mujahid rahimahullah is saying, you should be doing the other way around. Where even if there is a small fraction of evil in your action, something which will destroy your relationship with Allah, something which will put your akhirah at risk, something which will put your Jannah, your paradise at risk, you want to avoid it. Even though on the surface it's permissible. That is what taqwa is. That's what we're trying to achieve in Ramadan. In a conversation which occurred between Umar ibn al-Khattab and Ubay, Ubay was one of the scholars of the Quran. Umar ibn al-Khattab, being the great Sahabi he was, he still wants to learn from the other Sahaba. He has no ego issues. He goes to Ubay and he says, what is taqwa? He wants to understand from this scholar of the Quran, what is taqwa? Ubay, he said, have you ever passed a field full of thorns? Have you ever passed a field with bushes and with thorns?